Right, I'd like to call our meeting, would like to call our meeting to order. Roll call, members of council. We have, with regrets this evening, Councillor Tonio, and believe on Zoom, we have Councillor Jobin, and other members of council are here in chamber with our administrator and our community manager, who's our acting clerk tonight. And so this is an opportunity to welcome everyone to our meeting this evening. And first order of business, I want to report that we had a closed meeting that was held earlier today at 5:30 in accordance with section 239(2) F and H of the Municipal Act 2001. At the meeting, the members received an update of the town solicitor on land acquisition for the town and an update on an ongoing project. I would ask at this stage too, before I ask for a moment of silence, I want to, on behalf of council, our administration and our citizens here, our deepest condolences to the royal family on the loss of our sovereign, our queen, of 70 years that reigned over our country and the British realm. And so with that, I certainly want to have a moment of silence to recognize the unbelievable service that she gave to the British Commonwealth over 70 years. And in her death, it was pretty remarkable that she was working just hours before she actually passed. And as you know, she welcomed the new British Prime Minister, and at that point has then succumbed to her illness. And so with that, we offer our deepest sympathy to the family, and long live the King. And as we are now, for most of us, on October, or it would be on November the 15th. It'll be the first time that we pledge allegiance to the King and not the Queen. It's going to be certainly different for many of us. So we, again, are very deeply sorrowed. And as you know, the funeral will be held on September 19th. So keep the royal family in their prayers and certainly their thoughts with that. So with that, we'll rise the national anthem. So.
Our home and native land, true patriot love, in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
All right, we did make land acknowledgement in our previous public meeting at 6 o'clock. And so I'll go right to disclosure of pecuniary interest on the agenda as presented to you this evening. Okay, and declared, and so we'll have that duly noted. Members of council, we had the regular council meeting of August the 9th, the public council meeting August 9th. That was the ZBA at 4155 Manning Road. The public council meeting, August 9th, 2022. That was the Town of Tecumseh's official plan amendment on CIP policies. The fourth one, a public council meeting of August the 9th, 2022, ZBA at 6715 Malden Road. And finally, the public council meeting of August 9th, 2022, housekeeping amendment to town zoning bylaws on additional residential units. And so the recommendation is that on Tuesday, August 9th, the minutes of the regular council meeting and the public council meetings as we're duplicating and delivered to the members be adopted as read. Moved by Deputy Mayor Bichetti, supported by Councilor Houston. On those minutes, any errors or omissions? Having heard none, all in favor? Opposed? Those minutes are carried. I don't believe we have any supplementary agenda to deal with tonight. And no delegations. So communications, we have an item from the town of Kingsville dated September 1, 2022. And it's on Bill 3, the Strong Mayors Building Homes Act 2022. And the recommendation is that for information, item 1 is listed on the Tuesday, September 13, 2022 regular council agenda be received. Deputy Mayor Houston. Deputy Mayor Houston. Sorry about that, Councillor. I was going Councillor Bichetti, but Councillor Houston, and supported by Councillor Altenhoff. On the motion, all in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Okay, committee minutes. The town comes to business improvement area minutes of June 15th, 2022. I need a recommendation that those minutes of the Tecumseh business improvement area as we're duplicated and delivered to the members be adopted. Councillor Houston moves, Councillor Petrie support. On the motion, questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, opposed, that's carried. Reports. The first report, the development services, and it's the countywide active transportation system, also known as CWATS, the town of Tecumseh's 2022 or 2023 proposed projects are file TO5 CWATS. So I believe Mr. Hillman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening to council. This report has some history. Every year we bring forward from administration a report to council, and it relates to CWATS projects. And very briefly, Mr. Mayor and council, CWATS projects have been implemented since 2012, when the plan was first adopted by county council and by town council as well, and all the lower tier municipalities in the county of Essex. That's a 20-year planning document, which is the CWAT stands for Countywide Active Transportation System. And actually, just for the benefit of those watching, if the clerk could, acting clerk could just go to attachment number 2, please. And it's just a map identifying where the projects are located in the town of Tecumseh. This plan is implemented over 20 years, and in fact is being updated as we are speaking right now. And it identifies those regional active transportation facilities that are in municipalities and connect us to other municipalities. And they include bike lanes, paved shoulders, signed routes, and multi-use pathways. So this project has been ongoing, as I said, for 20 years. And the purpose of this evening is to look at what projects are imminent for 2023. And often we would be seeking council support for a capital project, but this year we won't be, in which I'll explain shortly. And as well, the report is proposing a number of municipal partnership program projects that are 50% funded by the County of Essex to encourage the use of active transportation facilities. So with that being said, Mr. Mayor, what's proposed under CWAS projects really covers a 5-year period from 2023 to 2027. And they align themselves with County Road 42 and 43 road improvements that are being undertaken by the County of Essex, as council will recall, there are most projects that are in the town of Tecumseh really are tied to capacity improvements by the County of Essex. So our projects really relate to their capital investment projects. And we're looking at 3 projects to be implemented over the next 5 years. The first is in relation to bike lanes on County Road 42. And they will extend from the 42-43 roundabout that will be put in and all the way over to County Road 19. That's a piece of infrastructure within a settlement area, and it will have a cost share of 60% the municipality, 40% the county. Given there's still design work being completed this year, and given that utility locates are anticipated for next year, we're not seeking any funding on that project this year, but a future report will come forward for the town to allocate specific funds and cost sharing on that. A second report that is on the horizon and being worked on by the county right now is on the County Road 42 for the segment that extends. It will go west from the roundabout at 43 extends to the border, and that involves a municipal trail, multi-use trail on the north side of the road, with the bike lanes on both sides of the road, and that includes the highway bike project that the county will be undertaking. That is outside of the settlement area, so it'll be 100% cost of the county. And then finally, there's a project in relation to County Road 43 from the railway tracks extending just south of the roundabout on 42, and that involves the placement of a trail, a multi-use trail on the east side of County 43. That again will be 100% on cost of the county, because that relates to a funding arrangement that came through as part of the Tecumseh Essex County Civil Adjustment. Once again, given that there are really no actual capital works other than installation of services, finalizing utilities and finalization of design, we aren't seeking council allocation of funds for these projects right now, but the report will come forward in the future for future years. So that's sort of the CWAT's infrastructure that is on the horizon for the town of Tecumseh. In addition, we are recommending a number of municipal partnership projects. We've had some success with these projects in the past, and working with our partners in the recreation department, Parks and Recreation. There are really 3 projects in relation to a bike camp, a bike rodeo.
Just hang on for a second, Mr. Hillman. Just we're losing your volume.
Okay. Is it better now?
A little bit. You know, I guess we'll have to get you to speak louder.
It's not often said. Mr. Firth is just in taking a look at no, is that better, Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Is it? Okay. We'll try that. I'm not sure what we did, but technology. And I will speak louder, Mr. Mayor. So there's 3 projects under the municipal partnership program that are being proposed with our Parks and Recreation partners here at the town. One is at a bike camp for a 1 week bike camp for children, and a bike rodeo to be held in the town, and 3 bike ballets that are associated with Canada Day celebrations, Tecumseh Twilights, and Labor Day weekend fireworks. So those are programs that are intended to foster improved use of bikes and active transportation facilities. So the municipal partnership program does provide an opportunity for 50% funding. The town's allocation of that cost would amount to $2,625. Administration is recommending the funding for this project from the infrastructure reserve. As has been the case in the past MPP, this pre-budget approval is sought exclusively for the purpose of the CWAT's application that we file with the county, with final approval referred to the 2023 budget process. So, Mr. Mayor, the recommendation was as at the beginning of the report. If we were to go back there, Madam Clerk, and it's in the agenda. So the first is that the report be received. And that with respect to the proposed municipal partnership program, that the total cost of $5,250 for the 1 week bike camp, the bike rodeo, and the bike ballets with the town share being $2,625, counties being $2,625 as well. That be endorsed, that an application be filed with the county CWAT's implementation committee for its consideration, and that funding for this be approved for the purpose of the CWAT's application, and that it be referred to the 2023 budget process. And Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Hillman. Any questions or comments on the report? There's a recommendation on the floor, moved by Councillor Altenhoff, supported by Councillor Petrie. No further questions or comments. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hillman. Okay, we'll move on to item number 2 in reports, the legislative and clerk services. That's the LCS 2022-30 inaugural meeting of Council-elect 2022. And I'll ask Christine to bring the report forward, but I think it's pretty straightforward.
Good evening, Your Worship and members of council. The first report presented before you this evening is with respect to the inaugural council of the council-elect. The procedure bylaw does state that the inaugural meeting of council after the 2022 regular election and regular elections thereafter shall be held on the first Tuesday that next follows, November 15th at 7 p.m. in the council chambers at Tecumseh Town Hall, or at an alternate location determined by resolution of council. The inaugural meetings of council have historically been very well attended. Seating is limited in council chambers and has not been sufficient to accommodate all attendees at previous inaugural meetings. The Chicharo Club of Windsor has been reserved for Tuesday, November 15th to hold the inaugural meeting of the 2022 council-elect in order to better accommodate the members, staff, all attendees, as well as to host the reception to follow the immediately after. The following motion is therefore before you for consideration, that the inaugural meeting of the council-elect for the 2022 to 2026 term be held on Tuesday, November 15th, 2022 at 7 p.m. at the Chicharo Club of Windsor, located at 3475 North Talbot Road, Tecumseh, and that notice of the meeting and change of venue be given on the town's website and social media. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for the report. Moved by Councillor Altenhoff, supported by Councillor Petrie. Any questions or comments? Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure if we can possibly consider, every time there's a new council elect, there's photos that we have to do a separate day. And I know at the county, whenever they do the inaugural, they always have you go a couple hours before and everyone's dressed and all the council's there and you take your council picture, just like we have on the walls there. So would it be something that administration would consider if possible to see if Spike Bell or whatever to do that, or is it more complicated than that?
Well, the problem is when we do it at the county, we're in the chamber. Here, we won't be in the chamber.
Good point. Yeah. Okay.
I listen, I don't disagree with your certainly your analogy. It just adds another day, but I think that's the problem. Is we host the whole celebration right there because the county building is much bigger.
Yeah. Well, we could do a regular council meeting, upcoming, so that we come to a council meeting ahead of time. So, okay. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments? If not, then I'll call a question. All in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Thank you. You're still on, Madam Acting Clerk. We've got the alley closing and transfer of land abutting 374 and 382 Berry Avenue and 12748 Little River Boulevard.
Thank you, Your Worship. The original request for this alley closure was received by the town in 2014, at which time the request was paused due to some concerns received by an affected property owner. There are now 2 new property owners, and the town received a request in April of this year to reinstate the original request. The town has received confirmation on any interest from abutting property owners to close the subject alley. We are respectfully asking for the following consideration: that report LCS 2022-31 entitled Alley Closing and Transfer of Land abutting 374 and 382 Berry Avenue and 12748 Little River Boulevard be received, and that the acting clerk prepare a bylaw to close up and authorize the sale of the alley located between 374 and 382 Berry Avenue and Little River Boulevard to be read at the September 27th regular council meeting. And further, that a notice be posted on the town's website regarding the alley closure and the transfer of land, along with the intention to pass a bylaw at the next regular council meeting. And furthermore, that the cost of the closure and conveyance of the subject alley be confirmed to be the responsibility of the neighboring property owners acquiring the land. Thank you.
Questions or comments? Hearing none, then the right resolution, move the recommendation. Councilor Houston, do I support? Deputy Mayor Riquetti? No further questions or comments. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Next report, also LCS 2022-32 call for 2022 award nominations.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report is requesting the call for nominations be deferred to January 2023. The town's award policy indicates that the clerk call for nominations in September annually with the submission deadline of October 31st. Given that the 2022 municipal election and school board municipal elections are being held from October 14th to October 24th, 2022, many residents will be focused on the elections and may miss the opportunity to nominate all individuals for the awards. We are requesting the following recommendation: that report LCS 2022-32 entitled Call for 2022 Award Nominations be received, and that the call for nominations as set out in the town's award policy for the 2022 awards be deferred to January 2023, and further that submissions be considered at a special meeting of council on Tuesday, March 14th, 2023 at 6 p.m. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Moved by Councilor Petrie, supported by Councilor Altenhoff. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed? That is carried. Okay. Moved right along. The LCS 2022-33 committees of local boards application selection process for 2023. Madam Clerk.
Well, we can't see Councilor Joe, but like the mayor wouldn't know if she had a question.
I'll just speak up when I'm gonna have a question. You're okay. Thank you.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. The report presented this evening is requesting that the call for applications for statutory committees and local boards commence, and that the call for applications for non-statutory committees be deferred and reviewed by the acting clerk. Earlier this year, the Clerk Services Delivery Review examined all of the town's committees and local boards and noted the level of support provided by the clerk's office. The review also noted that these types of duties would not typically be considered core clerk's office responsibilities. These extra duties are primarily centered around the non-statutory advisory committees. The Clerk Service Delivery Review provides guidance on how to conduct a review of the non-statutory advisory committees to determine whether their purpose is connected to council's strategic priorities and whether they continue to remain relevant to the community. This review would include an assessment of the current committee operations as well as their mandates. It is recommended that a review of the non-statutory advisory committees be conducted, reporting back to council with recommendations early in the new term of council. This would have the effect of delaying the appointments to these non-statutory committees until after this review and report is completed. At this time, the clerk's office will also review the policy number 4 and bring forward to the Policies and Priorities Committee of Council any changes required to update the policy. The following recommendation is put before you: that the notice of the call for applications for statutory committees and local boards be posted to the town's website and Facebook page, advertised in the local media, delivered to the current local board members, displayed on the town's LED signs, and posted in prominent locations in the town's facilities in September of 2022. and that the notice of the call for applications for non-statutory advisory committees be deferred, and that the acting clerk review the mandates of the non-statutory advisory committees relative to the town's strategic priorities and report back to council on the findings and recommendations. And further, that a special meeting of council be scheduled for Tuesday, December 13th, 2022 at 6 p.m. for the purpose of considering statutory committee and local board applications. Thank you.
I'll take a deep breath after that. All right, the recommendations before you, council. Moved by Council Houston, supported by Deputy Mayor Becchetti. On the motion, any further questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor, opposed, carried. Move on to Public Works and Engineering Services. PWES 2022-38, the Ministry of Transportation transfer of municipal roads, Outer Drive and South Talbot Road. Call on Mr. Bartnick.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Mayor and members of council. So the report before you does have one recommendation, that the report be received. In 2011, the MTO began construction on the Herb Gray Parkway, and in doing so, the MTO temporarily assumed parts of Outer Drive and South Talbot Road. This was done under the authority of the Public Transportation and Highway Improvement Act. A portion of Outer Drive, as shown in attachment 1, and a portion of South Talbot Road, as shown in attachment 2, have remained under MTO ownership, and they would now like to have that ownership transferred back to the town. So the town has met with the MTO and the Windsor Essex Mobility Group back in 2019 to initiate the consultation and the completion of the legal surveys for the parkway and the municipal road transfers. These road segments of Outer Drive and South Talbot Road are no longer needed by the MTO and can be returned to the town. Both of these segments of Outer Drive as well as South Talbot Road have been fully reconstructed as part of the parkway works. There is a portion of Outer Drive from Highway 3 down to South Talbot that is going to remain in the possession of the MTO. That roadway was heavily damaged during the parkway construction, and we, through consultation with MTO, we did not see a need for to have that road returned back to the town. So it will remain in MTO ownership and used as an access corridor for utilities. So the MTO will add these roadway transfers to the ministry's list of planned municipal transfers, which include orders in council to be processed. Section 29 of the Public Transportation and Highway Improvement Act allows a province to transfer any part of their highways to a municipality by an order in council. At this time, the MTO does not have an anticipated timeline for when this will be completed, but will advise the town accordingly. And there are no financial implications associated with this report. Happy to answer any questions if there are any. Thank you.
Questions or comments? Just one question, Phil. When I look at the map, I mean, obviously the Outer Drive, you know, the green dotted line, and that's the road that is coming back to us.
Yes, correct.
Now, that portion between the 401 and Highway 3, where the red line it intersects across Outer Drive. Now I know the bottom piece, that road is closed, and that's going to remain MTO. What about what's, let's say, I guess northwest of there?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
we had some good conversations with the MTO on this. So they will have, I believe what it's referred to as the Outer Drive connector from Highway 3 to Outer Drive. And that'll form part of their Highway 3 corridor. And the corridor, I think, heading, like you mentioned there, I think northwest, that'll remain part of the Highway 401 corridor. And I believe there's a number of utilities in there as well. and they need to maintain access off of Outer Drive for those utility companies. But there will be no through access to the general public. It's more of a maintenance area for the utility companies.
Yeah, because I looked at that piece, especially the one out the 401, and that'd be a nice lot for a little industrial if we were to get that piece, but maybe down the road, we don't know. Oh, sorry, Councillor Altenhoff.
Thank you, Worship, and through you to Mr. Bartnick. Thank you for the report. Just a question on the next attachment, which notes the South Talbot Road portion. Just a small section of that proposed to hand back to the town of Tecumseh. I mean, is it problematic that it be such a small portion? I'm assuming kind of to the either sides of that portion. Is that governed by the province, or I just want to make sure it's not putting us out of our way quite a bit. Do you understand?
Yeah, no, through you, your worship, very good question, Councillor Altenhoff. So this section of South Talbot Road, I think east, or I guess southeast of this location, South Talbot Road continues, I think, from Howard Avenue all the way down to Walker Road, and that is a municipally owned road. The corridor kind of outlined in red, I believe will be maintained and retained by the MTO under their control. So although it's a small section of South Talbot Road, it does form part of the larger extent of South Talbot through the town.
Thank you very much.
Okay, any further questions on the recommendation is that the report outlined title Ministry of Transportation of Ontario, PWES 2022-38, the transfer of municipal roads to the town to Tecumseh, a portion of Outer Drive and the portion of South Talbot Road be received. Councillor Altenhoff and Councillor Petrie. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. All right, we'll go to financial services. Mr. Kitsos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, Mayor and members of council. So the purpose of this report is to provide council with a financial summary of the 2021 year-end budget variance. The town ended 2021 with a tax-supported surplus of $1.3 million and a rate-supported surplus of $500,000 for a total surplus of roughly $1.8 million. Administration recommends that the tax-supported surplus be transferred as follows: $500,000 to the tax rate stabilization reserve, including $9,000 of unused 2021 approved energy management budget dollars to be carried forward and used in 2022, and $491,000 to replenish the tax rate stabilization reserve to approximately $3.3 million. The tax rate stabilization reserve is the town's main source of funding for operational emergencies, one-time operating expenditures, and year-end operating deficits. Industry best practice suggests retaining a reserve balance between 10 to 15% of the operating budget, which would put us somewhere between $2.6 million and $3.9 million. We also recommend transferring $810,000 to the infrastructure reserve, which is the town's only dedicated reserve to help fund new infrastructure projects, and $30,810 of the capital fund surplus related to the 2021 approved and unspent small equipment budget to be carried forward to 2022 for purchases that were not able to be fulfilled at year end. And that the rate supported surplus coming from water and wastewater services be transferred as follows: $219,000 water operating surplus to the water rate stabilization reserve, and $281,000 wastewater operating surplus to the wastewater rate stabilization reserve. So these two reserves are the main funding source for water, wastewater operational emergencies, one-time expenditures, and year-end operating deficits. So council will recall that the 2021 budget was developed during the period August through December of 2020, while operating under a dual state of emergency for the COVID-19 pandemic and the threat of inland flooding from high lake levels. The budget included consideration for both emergencies, allocations up to $100,000 in potential expenditures related to inland lake flooding were provided within the storm operating budget to be funded from the tax rate stabilization reserve, thereby not impacting the tax rate for 2021. With respect to the pandemic, programs were budgeted to experience reduced levels of revenue or user fees, assuming restrictions would be in place limiting capacity, while incurring relatively normal operating expenditures. So pandemic financial pressures under these assumptions amounted to just under $500,000, of which approximately $400,000 was to be funded from the tax rate stabilization reserve, while one-time budget cuts of $100,000 would compensate for the remainder. The primary factors accounting for the year-end surplus are summarized in the table in the executive summary on page 2 and 3. Of those listed in the table, the biggest factors include net budgeted, unbudgeted grant funding, so it showing a favorable variance of $850,000. This is primarily due to SRA Phase 2 and COVID-19 recovery funding grant allocations announced after our budget adoption. It also includes unbudgeted grants to support the hiring of students through the SJS program and Canadian Parks and Recreation Association. User fees, licenses, fines, revenue showed a deficit despite our reduced budget amounts of $250,000. And wages and benefits surplus of $585,000 was primarily due to temporary position vacancies and reduced staffing hours with respect to programming changes for pandemic restrictions. In the comments section of the report, pages 4 through 7, you can find greater detail to the items listed in this table in the executive summary. The rate supported operating surplus is summarized on page 7 and 8 of the report and is primarily due to greater user fees for both water and wastewater, directly related to greater than budgeted water consumption volumes. So sorry. I think is it Sean who's controlling the page here. So it would be, if you scroll down about 4 more pages. One more, there you go. Okay, thank you. So as I said, the rate supported operating surplus is summarized on these next 2 pages. So I guess it's 94 and 95. And primarily due to greater user fees for both water and wastewater. So that's directly related to greater than budgeted water consumption volumes. This is in contrast to what we have seen the past several years where consumption volumes have been declining year over year. There's also favorable variance for direct costs for both water and wastewater. So that's related to our bulk water purchases from the City of Windsor. So the rate increase is based on the year-end consumer price index change. So that figure was lower than what we had budgeted. And with respect to wastewater treatment, the rate there is based on prior year operating cost per volume by the City of Windsor. And that was lower than what we had budgeted. These factors all contributed to the operating budget variance. Greater detail arranged by department budget is provided in attachment number 2 to this report. The town's capital budget variance reporting is referenced on this page here, I think it's 94, and lists the number of active capital reports during 2021. That count includes projects that were initiated in prior years. The total approved budget for the active projects amounts to $40 million. Project variance and status are detailed by project in attachments 3 and 4 to this report. Highlights include the substantial completion of major capital projects, including Manning Road Phase 2, which had a total budget of $5.6 million, County Road 11, sanitary sewer extension and Seawatts Trail, total budget of 1.6 million. Highway 3, County Road 11, water main replacement at a total budget of $1.8 million. Tecumseh Road sanitary, L'Esperance to Southfield capacity enhancement had a budget of 2.2 million. Town Hall expansion had a budget of 3.4 million. Parks, Recreation and Trails Master Plan update, $75,000. Parks playset replacements at Optimist, Dorset and Dresden Parks, total budget of 170,000 for those. And major fleet replacements for water service truck and backhoe, budgeted at 235,000, and a fleet addition of a high water rescue vehicle budgeted at $163,000. So with that, if there are any questions, I'd be happy to take those now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kitsos. Any questions or comments? Go ahead, Councillor Allenhoff.
Thank you, Worship, and through you to Mr. Kitsos. I guess it's always, and we keep in mind that this is 2021, you know, we'll be going into kind of a 2023 budget. So it's you know, certainly a period of years that have passed here, but you know, seeing the surplus is always a good thing. I guess my concern is to see it of that magnitude, almost pushing $2 million, to the point where I'm just wondering, you know, and this is an outliner of a year. I think we have to recognize that as well. So I do want to state that, but I'll always say let's learn from our experience here. And you know, even though it was you know, the magnitude of the surplus is significant, because you know, certainly would be nice to have, you know, that money, I guess, in our residents' pockets. But being said, we just have to be mindful that that was an extremely unique position that maybe none of us will be subjected to ever again in our lives. But I guess I say let's learn from this experience to try to, you know, albeit we want to kind of minimize that surplus, you know, just be cautious and I guess learn from the exercise that we've gone through. I guess that was my concern, not necessarily really a question, just seeing the magnitude of that surplus. But also, you know, we have to be aware that this was during that pandemic and a significant time for us. So I did want to raise that out and just say, look, let's put that in our knowledge filing folder and just be aware that, you know, that there is some rationale for that. I just wanted to note that, but I appreciate the opportunity to provide that comment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Okay, go ahead, Councillor Houston.
Thank you, and through you to Tom and really all the employees of the town. 2021 was certainly an extraordinary year, and just want to say thank you for you know, your help. You know, surely delivering you know, surpluses like this. It wasn't easy, and there was a lot of work and a lot of influence, you know, on that number. I realize there's a large grant in there and a lot of sacrifices as well that everybody had to make. So I just wanted to, you know, pass along and say thank you to everyone for 2021. So.
All right, thank you. Thank you for that. But one thing I want to add before we move on too, as well, is that as you all know, yeah, 2021 was the great unknown. But you remember, we took 500,000 out of our rate stabilization fund to protect our citizens. We 160,000 for the vehicle for high water, that was out of the rate stabilization fund. You've seen what the numbers are coming in from the trail, an extra $1 million. And we have to find an extra 2 million for our contributions to County Road 42. And so I'm very, very, you know, pleased that we did receive help from the federal government on numerous grants, and also our provincial counterparts on the funds to help stabilize us. And quite frankly, nobody really knew, you know, what the extent of what 2021 was going to be on us, and certainly in that regards. So one of the things that I'm really happy is the fact that we were able to maintain the level of service and capital works during you know, some some pretty difficult times for our staff and certainly the residents themselves. No doubt, to your point, Councillor Altenhoff, we're always looking, I mean, obviously, we're looking at the difficulties that, and we're finding, our citizens, and all of us around the horseshoe here are citizens too, and are dependent on the level of service that that is needed, to keep the municipality going. And so realistically, if we didn't utilize the rate stabilization fund for a lot of those projects that we needed, we would have had to go directly to the ratepayers, to make up those dollars. So I think another lesson here is how important it is to maintain a good level of not surpluses, but in terms of reserves, and that rate stabilization fund is a bit of a lifeline for us during some pretty hectic times, because I could imagine the difficulty we would have had as a council to sit there and say, we're raising, $500,000 right away in taxes just to, put a berm up. And then to continue to fulfill the requirements of a new subdivision, we got to buy a $160,000 vehicle. So we're going to raise your taxes there before we even acknowledge getting development charges or anything to help build that. So I do want to commend administration, because I think it's important for us as stewards. And you can see 40 million of capital works. I mean, that is impressive, when you look at a small community like ours, and those are services, that our community really need, and they certainly deserve. And at the end of the day, they're the ones paying for it, and in that regards. But I'll tell you, I was a little bit taken aback when I saw the number, and then I start looking at, well, we've got some major programs confronting us right now. So, I can give it back, and then I'm going to take it back. And because we see what the high prices of, that we're getting from, the road works and the supply chain that's being affected, and the cost of inflation, to do business and so forth. I hope 2023, things start to stabilize a little bit, and I'll use your words today, harmonize in terms of harmony within the supply chain and the demand. That supply and demand is what really is hurting a lot of the projects. So I too want to extend my thanks, certainly administration. I'm 1.3 million or 1.8 million on the top end. I'll take that over the 1.8 million going the other way. And because we'd have to, as we can't run deficits as a municipality. We'd have to find those monies. So thank you for the report, Mr. Kitsos. I think I would support the direction in terms of where we need to put those dollars. But again, they're going to be there not for too long, because we got some major projects that we have to deal with. So I'll pass this on to the administrator now.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Appreciate the kind words, and I certainly appreciate and respect Councillor Altenhoff's advice to continually look for improvement, which we do. I do believe that the administration performed exceptionally well under the circumstances. If there's any word that probably sums it up, is unpredictable. What we were facing down in the fall of 2020, as the treasurer pointed out, that was when this budget was prepared. And, there was a lot of unknown about senior government support during the pandemic. And to the mayor's point, they came through for us. And so there were substantial recovery types of grants that could be applied against operating costs. There wasn't a day that went by that our director of Parks and Recreation had to either close something or open something. And it was just a pandemonium to continue to operate. Everyone, had to operate remotely, and that was the learning curve. And I could speak for quite a long time on the amount of pivoting and adjusting that everyone did. So we appreciate your appreciation, and certainly to the mayor's point, the money will be invested into the community. None of it will be wasted. It will be used for our current and future priorities as council has directed. And so we are certainly grateful and never take for granted the funds that our taxpayers provide. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any further questions or comments to Mr. Kitsos on the report? And then a motion. Yeah, it's a long one. I think everybody's got it, in terms of directing the funds in the rate stabilization and also the infrastructure funds. Moved by Deputy Mayor Bichetti, supported by Councilor Houston. On the motion, all in favor, opposed if any, that is carried. And the final report is financial services again, 2209, the payroll process review update. Mr. Kitsos.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the purpose of this report is to provide council with an update on our payroll process review initiative. Administration identified our current payroll process as an opportunity for efficiency gains through the modernization of current processes, primarily through advances in technology. We had included a one-time budget line item in our Financial Services 2021 budget to provide for funding for this review through reserves. Following the budget adoption, the province announced Municipal Modernization Program Intake 2, for which the town applied for and was successful in its grant application. So that fortunately funded 100% of the cost of this review. The town engaged Blackline Consulting in the fourth quarter of 2021 to conduct the process review, and the review was completed in late January of 2022 with recommendations presented to council and summarized in Council Report FS 2022-02. Now, the consultant recommendations focused primarily on automation of time capture and workflow, including recommendation to acquire a time capture software solution and investigation of enhanced potential or replacement of the town's existing financial software. Administration acted on those recommendations immediately following the completion of the review, first by engaging our current software provider, and that's VADM, to arrange for a business specialist to review our current process and system configuration, and to provide recommendations to improve efficiency. Originally, it was anticipated that this review could be conducted in June of this year. However, we were notified in April that due to capacity constraints of the business specialist, the earliest we could schedule this review is October 2022, which we have done. We've also reached out to potential time and attendance software providers that are compatible with our current ERP, as well as been in discussions with our current software provider, VADM, with respect to an improved time and attendance offering that they have, which may have potential for the town. This was something that our consultants were not aware of during their review. So ultimately, our objective is to get the best result possible within our budgetary constraints. As our current software provider provides for other functions at the town, the most prudent path we see is to seek improvements to our current software that will achieve that objective. The alternative is replacement of our system, which is a major undertaking and affects many other functions for the town. So should the results of the business specialist review prove to be effective, we would then look to see whether the VADM time and attendance offering is viable. And if not, then we would look for the best standalone offering that is compatible with our current system. Should the business specialist review prove not effective, then we would look to replacement of our current ERP solution. But the first big step, as we've noted here, is the business specialist review, which is scheduled for this October. So once those recommendations and our interpretation and plan are learned, so we expect in early 2023. Administration will report back to council with our next steps. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take those now.
Thank you, Mr. Kitsos. Any questions or comments on the report? Then motion on the recommendation, moved by Councillor Houston and supported by Councillor Altenhoff. On the motion, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that is carried. All right, I think we're ready for bylaws.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have 3 bylaws before you this evening for consideration. Bylaw 71 to restrict cannabis greenhouse operations and agricultural A zone in accordance with the policies of the Town of Tecumseh official plan. Bylaw 72 being a bylaw to amend bylaw 8518, the town's comprehensive zoning bylaw for those lands in the former township of Sandwich South. And bylaw 73 to amend bylaw 8518 to the town's comprehensive zoning bylaw for lands in the former township of Sandwich South for 4155 Manning Road. We are respectfully asking for first and second reading, and if appropriate, third and final. Thank you.
All right, thank you. First and second reading, Councillor Houston, Councillor Altenhoff. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor? Opposed, if any, that's carried. Therefore, third reading is in order. Moved by Councillor Houston, supported by Deputy Mayor Riquetti. All in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Any unfinished business? New business? Councillor Altenhoff.
Thank you, Worship. And through you, perhaps just a piece of information to everyone, I think important information, and also a kind of acknowledgement from, both, I guess, the resident side as well as kind of administration. Just so the council's aware, over the past month, there's been 2 incidences of a vehicle traveling on Manning, or vehicles, I should say, traveling on Manning Road, where unfortunately they've ended up in a backyard on the west side of Manning Road. And there have been a number of residents who voiced concerns about that, rightfully so. Obviously, with the Manning Road work that's been done, with the absence of the ditch, you can physically see how the problem, potentially could occur. With the ditch there, obviously, that probably would have been mitigated. But nonetheless, I do want to acknowledge kind of the residents' concerns, and rightfully so. I also want to acknowledge, the efforts. I think administration has looked at it with the OPP, and they are in kind of communications with those residents. But I wanted to bring it to the attention of council, just something that maybe, again, we'll kind of keep on the radar, albeit perhaps, because it is a safety concern, quite important. But just something to note, and something to kind of keep on top of. I hope, and from what we've heard from both the OPP and the administration, it is believed that these have been extenuating vehicle incidences, something that really is kind of outside of the norm. But nonetheless, let's keep our data book open and kind of keep looking at things, and hopefully we'll never hear about this again. But I did want to bring it to your attention because I think it is important. No one wants a vehicle in their backyard, which has happened kind of twice in the past month for residents in that area. So it is a bit of a surprise, a significant surprise. So again, I wanted to kind of bring that to your attention. Thank you.
Well, thank you for that, Councillor Altenhoff. There's no doubt eventually that's Manning Road at some point in time will have to, that's not the finished product. And, with curbs and the proper curbs and so forth, hopefully it'll help mitigate that and so forth. But to your point, I think it's something that's got to be our focus point as well, that and maybe a reminder as well to the resident. We're getting towards the finished product, but we're not quite there yet. And hopefully we'll be able to deal with that. And right now, it is pretty wide open now without without the ditch there. So I would imagine if the ditch would have been there and those two vehicles, it could have been a very serious, you land in a house or people on their property. So either way, it's, it's dangerous. There's no doubt. So I'm sure that the administration will, and that's something that the Police Services Board and that will certainly bring that to their attention and try to figure out at some point, how we can make that safer until, the finished product is before us, in that regard. So thank you for bringing that up. Any further new business? Motion. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, and through you. I just wanted to bring attention, and I know the BIA will be sending an email to Monique with the Christmas party for the BIA. It's on November 26th. So there will be a save the date to come out just to notify council and the town of that. Also just wanted to mention that I do like the new format of the agenda with the recommendations right on there. And I think it'll be much easier for our residents to kind of look at that quickly and understand it a little better. But I just wanted to say I like the new format. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. If no further new business, then we do have a motion to deal with here, and I'm going to ask Deputy Mayor Riquetti to bring that forward.
Thank you, Mayor. Just to give some background to council here, if they would consider this motion that I have prepared this evening. It's regarding the e-scooter bike program. And in terms of background, in an era of rising fuel and energy costs, coupled with the effects of climate change, it is important to consider expanding the availability of alternative transportation modes to our residents. Alternative transportation modes have the dual benefit of working towards Tecumseh's goal of lowering our carbon footprint and reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. E-bikes and e-scooters are eco-friendly vehicles that save energy and are at the forefront of green vehicles. In addition to private purchases of e-scooters and e-bikes, companies are now coming online to offer public access to shareable assets that enable users to pay to ride. By adding this alternative to existing public transportation options, municipalities can reduce reliance on fossil fuels and commit to a more efficient form of transportation. At both the most recent FCM and AMO conferences, myself, along with, Mayor Gary McNamara, spoke to various vendors on the e-scooters, and they were there to provide and promote their municipal programs. So based on this information, I propose the following motion. That administration be directed to investigate the possibility of a pilot project with vendors that offer public access to utilize their e-scooters or e-bikes as an alternative mode of transportation on a pay-to-ride basis, and report back to council with options and budget implications in time for consideration during the 2023 budget deliberations. And I'd be happy to move that if I can have support.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Do I have a seconder on the motion? Councilor Houston. Any questions or comments? Go ahead, Councilor Houston.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I'm happy to, support this. I don't know enough about, the companies and the model that those companies would run and what's required to make it a successful program. I had the opportunity to travel to Montreal this year, and I was amazed at the amount of bikes that was in and all over, the city. And, one thing that they do have there is, excellent bike lanes. I was impressed with the division of bike lanes with road, sidewalk, and then, roads, parking, and then the bike lanes. And I know the one thing that they have there is density, right? There's many, many more people. So, with this, I'd be interested to learn more about what is required to make this program successful. If we have the amount of people here that would use it and it would be a successful program, I think it'd be a great addition. But we obviously have to look into it. So I'm happy to support the motion.
Go ahead, Councillor Petrie.
Through your worship, I will be happy to support this motion. But one thing I did notice in another municipality that has the e-scooters, they're haphazardly left on the sidewalks in the morning, especially after the weekend. I've gone downtown and they're laying on a sidewalk or laying on the park. I mean, I'm sure that these companies would regulate where they're left. And I think that's something we would have to look at. Like I won't be here when this pilot project, but I will be sitting over there. So I will have some questions on, where are they left at the end of the night? Are they just dropped wherever? It reminded me of when I was a kid and I left my bicycle on the sidewalk and I got tuned up. So when I did see those like that, I thought it's not looking good for the community to have it, but I think it's a wonderful project, and to lower that carbon footprint is what we're all striving to do. So I will support this motion.
Yeah, in speaking with them, Neuron and others, I've seen them when I went to Scandinavia in 19, and I'd never seen so many scooters in my life. And they're left, they're standing here at the hotel or wherever they're going and so forth. Usually the company, they during the night, obviously, they're all GPS monitored. They know exactly where each one is, and left, they go and they pick them up, and then they bring them to various areas, points of interest, where they can be picked up and so forth. They do that on an ongoing basis. It's kind of like the car to go in Montreal and Toronto and Ottawa. They drive these small 4.2 smart cars, and they basically, at the leisure of the driver, they drive them, and then they just park it on the side of the road. And then once the their time limit is exhausted and so forth, then the machine just doesn't run anymore. And they're also GPS control, my understanding as well. You can set the GPS control to the region you want them to participate in. So it's not as if, I'm going to go to Lighthouse Cove, and I'm going to go down the trail system and then I'm going to leave it there. Somebody's going to pick me up. You can't do that. And so they wouldn't even go beyond Tecumseh, for example. So if you just want them around the park or certain trail areas, through Ganacho or whatever, they will do that in their program, kind of like the golf cart in the golf course. They're programmed through GPS to make sure you don't go on a green. So if you're actually going to track in areas you're not supposed to, it'll shut down and so forth. So there is a lot to learn on them in that regards. And I think that's why I certainly support the project, too, in the pilot, so that we can determine where they can go and where they shouldn't go. And we can control that and so forth. But coming here tonight, I saw a gentleman probably in his late 40s, and he had his satchel on himself in the backpack, and he had one of those scooters, and he was going down Arbor and so forth. So it is an alternative mode of transportation and so forth. So, but I'm looking forward to having the representatives here, and then all the questions that we do have. And Councilor Petrie, even if you're sitting in the audience at some point in time, you can certainly ask questions as well. So with that, if there's no further, go ahead, Councilor Altenhoff.
No, thank you, Worship. And through you, I think this is a good opportunity for us to kind of see and explore, these alternatives that are being made available. I mean, that they certainly are already implemented in other municipalities. I think an important part here is, and again, we'll leave it to the experts when they do the research and come back on exploring this. But how does the shape and the geometry of our municipality favor or not favor it? I mean, there's a lot of attributes here that I think certainly are beyond my scope. So I would appreciate the expertise of others to kind of look at it. And please note in this eventual report that will come before the future council on, advantages and disadvantages. Because I mean, we can always see disadvantages as perhaps something bad, but let's also look at them as an opportunity, because maybe that's something that will go beyond an e-scooter, an e-bike, perhaps to something of associated with an electric vehicle or something, if that's really necessary. So I think we have a lot to learn here, especially the way, we're kind of being directed towards these e-vehicles, whether they be scooters, bikes, or four-wheeled vehicles. So I'm happy to support this, and interested to see what the future shows, because as we've seen from Back to the Future, what was predicted in the first episode really wasn't a good reflection of what happened. But that being said, unless we do these studies, unless we do kind of the exploration, we'll never know. And I think we have to certainly do that. It's the right time for us. Thank you.
All right. Any further questions or comments on the motion? All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. And before I go to the confirmatory bylaw, I under new business, I should have, I wanted to make a bit of a comment. I did drive on Tecumseh Road, the new section from Arlington to Brighton Road. And I was very impressed at the trail that's now laid out there. It's a full 3 or 4 meters wide along the fence line, beautifully done. And the road, and I think the road itself, and to Councillor Altenhoff, I think he's going to like the fact that I think the road is wide enough that you can actually put a bike lane on the road itself. So I really was impressed, and I'm looking forward to when the other section is finished and all connected. So that's going to be a beautiful opportunity for us to connect all of our trail systems, in particular what's coming up on Manning and also the Riverside Trail itself. Really around the village itself with the trails that are there now, it's gonna be great connection. So I was very impressed. So I don't know if Mr. Bartnick's still on, but very impressed with that project to date. Okay. Confirmatory bylaw. All right, move and by Councilor Orton, now supported Councilor Houston, that bylaw 22074 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of Tuesday, September 13th, 2022 regular meeting of council corporation town Tecumseh begin first, second, and third and final reading. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. Any notices of motion? Hearing none. Okay, our next meeting is Tuesday, September 27th, 6:30 quarter revision. That'll be the South Talbot drain and 12th line drain. And 7 p.m. will be our regular council meeting. Therefore, no further business. Adjournment is now in order. Councillor Altenhoff move and Councillor Houston support. All in favor? Opposed, if any? That is carried. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you, administration, members of council, and certainly those who are streaming from the comforts of home. Thank you, and we bid you good night.